Okay, we're going live and we are live. Hi, Suzanne. How are you? I
I'm fine. How are you? You just caught me just about to eat my mango.
know. That was very interesting. So, actually, I caught you off guard.
But it's okay. I mean, we all eat, right? Somebody has to eat.
I think every living being eats, including insects. So, karibu
Of
sana to
course.
the diversity. Karibu to the Diversity with Diana podcast. I am
Thank
on
you.
the second season, and congratulations on your podcast. I am so proud of you.
Oh, thank you, girl. Me too.
We need to have more platforms of young, active Africans narrating our own stories and demystifying things that were not commonly known to us.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me rightly introduce you. This is I think I'm just excited to go with this introduction. So I
Okay.
know I can't see anybody live with us right now, but hopefully they will watch it a bit later. But in studio today with us, we have Suzanne Silantoi, a public policy analyst who has recently graduated from the University of York with a Master's of Arts in Public Administration and Public Policy. Suzanne was the youngest Nairobi's senatorial candidate in 2017 at the age of 23. So, Suzanne was also a nominee of the International Association of Political Consultants Democracy Awards in 2017, alongside the Chief Justice Maragwa and the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya. And Kemal, is it Kemal Kilakdrogul?
That guy.
Turkey's
It's a hard
opposition
name.
leader. Right. So, Suzanne, you are part of the short term election observation mission of the African Union to the Federal Republic of Nigeria's presidential election. The African Union deployed 50 short term observers led by the head of mission, who served as the Prime Minister of Ethiopia between 2012 and 2018. So you're part of that entourage. You're also part of the short term election observation mission of the African Union to the Republic of Sierra Leone in 2018 general elections, as well as the runoff presidential election held on the 31st of March 2018. You've been privileged to speak in various international youth forums, such as the African Union Regional Youth Consultation on Harnessing the Demographic Dividend Through Investments in Youth of Arusha, Tanzania. And then the fourth and fifth annual Continental Forum of Election Management Bodies in Kigali, Rwanda, and Ivory Coast, respectively. You have over 5 years in health development space, currently running a podcast and a YouTube channel known Is That So with Silantoi. The aim of the channel is to help understand our role in government and help raise politically empowered generation. Suzanne, I read your bio with a lot of admiration, just at how young you are, the exposure that you've gotten, the wisdom that I have been privileged to also witness in your short stint in leadership as you continue to do so. Because for you, this is just a start.
Thank you.
Karibu. Karibu sana. I see the person live 2 minutes in, but Susan, let's go straight into this conversation. So this is an informal discussion, just like what you do
Yeah.
on Is That So?
hmm
And I think we're just inviting the networks that know us and the people that know us to maybe just understand what is this thing that is getting us to be crazy about governance, inclusion, participation. You tell us at 23, what was on your mind to even get into the political scene, Susan?
Well, I mean, at that time, I don't think that it had anything to do with inclusion or um, it was just out of frustration. I was just very frustrated with the country, and I thought, I mean, there has to be something someone can do about it. So let me do something about it. And how I thought would be impactful would be to get into the political space in an elective capacity. So that's what I did. Some people would describe that as a moment of madness, uh, but um, but yeah, I went with it, and I hoped to, just change something in the country and take meaningful steps towards that. So that's what that was about. And I think it hasn't stopped. In fact, no, it hasn't stopped. What am I saying? It has not stopped. And we continue to. Can you hear me?
Definitely hear you. I'm actually just
Oh,
waiting for your
I don't know if
intro to.
Dan is. Oh,
Yes, yes,
okay, there you are. Oh, you're
yes.
still there. Okay, okay. So yeah, this is a space that I feel we need to take more responsibility in. I think more of us need to actively engage because if we don't engage, like someone else will, and they'll
Right.
prioritize their own desires and things, and they'll let us be, you know, destitute. So if
Yeah.
we don't participate, then it's to our detriment, really, and not anything else. Yeah.
So today's discussion is specifically on women in politics, but you're just not a woman, but you're a youth and a woman. And you're saying it's anger that got you into the space,
Yeah, it's
Suzanne. At
frustration. Like
23,
I was just
what
like,
had you
God
seen?
damn
What
it.
had you seen? You can hear me.
So I
Hmm.
can hear you, yes. Yeah. So
Right.
at the time I had been working in the NGO space in the health sector for probably 2 years, 2.5 years. Um and the thing that like tipped it over, usually you'd get like frustrated, like, ah, this one doesn't work, ah, this one doesn't work.
Mhm.
But the thing that tipped it for me was um there was a period of time where the doctors were on strike for like 3 months. Um,
Mhm.
then soon after, the nurses were on strike for another 3 months. So basically, hospitals in the country were shut.
Mhm.
So like, if you think about it, where are kids being born? These kids, who is immunizing them? Where are people going to see doctors? Like, what is happening in that space? And I think that was
Right.
it. That was it for me. Like 6 months, 6 full months, the hospitals were closed. When at the same
Right.
time, you find there was a lot of corruption issues just going on at the same time within the Ministry of Health.
Right.
It's not even just in general.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made me like, what is this? What is this? Like, please, someone needs to do something about it.
Mm.
Um, I know it sounds very far fetched, but
It
imagine
does.
it just happened like that.
Imagine, and it doesn't sound far-fetched. Let me tell you, I was just how I also got into this space for public policy and even politics in general. In 2012, I was an unfortunate victim of a break-in into my apartment, an attempted armed robbery, basically. And when I tell people that policy started that night, people don't understand. I'll not go into the details of what happened, but I know seeking medical services with somebody who was in a fatal state. And the hospital that was open that day had nurses on strike. And I think for me, that is the day that the system failed me. And that's when the idea or even the thought of me engaging in changing the system was born. So when you say that, I'm just like, I don't think I was alone because Suzanne, I remember I was actually 24 because I remember what followed then was a whole chaotic moment. But that was the day that I felt an injustice on me as a Kenyan. That due to health policies, due to an ongoing strike, due to the doctor being in the hospital alone without nurses, I was not able to get emergency services to somebody that needed it most. And a fatality
Yeah,
eventually happened. So it's not ridiculous. And I'm just glad that there are those of us who are being consciously awakened into this realization that unless we start
yeah,
speaking up, be the change that we want to see, honestly, we're
yeah.
just being, I don't know what we are being. The other interesting thing is, I don't know if you felt this, but for me, the what's it called? When you're paying taxes, when you look at your gross income, and then you see a huge
I
chunk of that going to
know.
tax, you're like, so what have I been paying this 30% for? Can I get an accountability for it? So I don't know. As a now, okay, you've told me about your inspiration to join the space. What about as a
Yeah,
woman? What about as a woman? How did the space receive you? Being a youth candidate and then being a female
yeah.
candidate. How do you think it received you?
My experience was quite unique, in the sense that you mentioned I was both young and I was also young.
Yeah.
And then I was also vying in Nairobi. And so for some
Mm.
reason, people took interest in my candidature. I was just like, who's this girl and what is she trying to do?
Mhm.
So the first thing that people were most concerned about was actually my age because I was 23. And the kinds of questions that people used to ask me were like, why don't you just go and develop your career and then you can come and retire in politics, or things like those, like
Right.
so that was a first like major issue of contention with people about my candidature. The second
Mm.
one was now my gender, and they were like, first of all, it was you don't have a family, you're not married, um, so who, like, what makes us think that you are going to be able to use the space or be responsible, because we've not seen you demonstrate it in a household. Um, and there were other people whose main concerns were, you'll never get someone who will marry you because when you enter politics, you become, I don't know, like I don't know how to explain that.
Ridiculous.
You become public property or something like that. As in, it was literally someone actually told me that, and I was just like, okay, what's a basilica?
I mean,
um,
is that ridiculous? So they ask that to a young man.
they wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would
I don't
not.
think.
They would only ask. But young men don't get. In fact, young men would probably be encouraged, like, yes, you're young, you should do that. But for me, it's like, go get children first, and then
Yeah.
let's see whether you're responsible enough to take care of the rest of us. Which I thought was very ironic, like the standards which they hold women to, because we don't hold men to the same standards. How many men are in the political space and don't even take care of their children,
Mm.
and yet they continue to be elected, and then this is the standard that
Right.
me I'm measured by, so that was a bit strange, but I do have to certainly say that I didn't get too much of that. Most of it
Mhm.
was actually about, girl, you are young, please go do something else with your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did see, those effects that women face quite a lot, also happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go to now what you felt or what you experienced in that journey. Did you get support that you thought you would have received, say from your family, from your friends, from the immediate society around you, and from the general public? Did you get that support, and what was your experience actually?
Um, so I think in two ways. My family, my friends, um, it took a while to convince them that, oh, my guys, I'm actually doing this. But once I
Yes.
did, they responded very positively. I think I'm very, very lucky to have a very good support system. Um,
Mhm.
and they were the guys who helped me run my campaign. My family, my
Wow.
friends, those were the people who volunteered and just gave of their time and energy.
Mhm.
Their networks were able to raise funds,
Mhm.
and so I think from my friends and my family, I had the best response that I could probably get. Um, to the public, I think it depends on who we are looking at. So when because I campaigned on the ground, I made sure I went to every of the 84 um, sub counties in Nairobi,
Mm.
um, and it was sorry, 84 wards,
Yes.
and we
The one-
made sure to go to. It was a very interactive campaign, so it was not necessarily door to door, but similar concept. Um,
Mhm.
I was actually very surprised by how people receive political aspirants on the ground. In terms of, yes, there were a few factions of people who would ask you for money, um, but the
Mm.
majority of them were actually like very curious, very interested to hear, um, what, who are you? What do you
Yes.
want? Let me know. Like they would actually listen to what you had to say. There were so many people who I spoke to, explaining myself, introducing myself. I shook so many hands. I cannot remember.
Right.
But like
Pre
it was,
corona. Pre-corona,
Pre-corona, yes. Pre-COVID, yes.
right?
Disclaimer.
Yeah, yeah,
But yes, like I was very surprised by just how receptive people were, and it was just pockets of very few people who would be resistant or who would ask for money, and that gave me a lot of hope in terms
right.
of I guess people actually, have a space to listen to it, because politics is very polarizing. It's a very almost murky and dirty, and people just always like shy away from it. Like, oh, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah,
But I was very surprised to find it, and it was people of all ages. It was
yeah,
older women, it was younger women, it was men and women. It's just everybody from different age groups. If you just stopped and talked to them, I'll be like, oh, for real? Okay,
mhm,
that's interesting. And
right.
we'll take your flyer and we'll let okay, I'll think about it. Or,
Yeah.
it was actually good conversations that I had with a lot of people. So
Wow.
I have to say my experience was actually quite enlightening. Like, oh, you guys actually think like this about politics.
Yeah.
And I know it was because there are a few factors that played in my favor in terms of I was an independent candidate.
Yes.
So I know there are places, at least, where people from a specific party cannot go to campaign, or people from a specific tribe cannot go to campaign. And so
Mhm,
I was lucky to be in a
mhm.
minority group. People really don't. And I was also independent, and so I could speak to just about anyone, and they'd
Right.
actually stop and listen and give it a shot, just because I didn't play into any of the stereotypes or any of the big polarizing sides. So that was my
Yeah.
experience, and that was a good experience for me. Yeah.
I mean, listening to you, it's exciting to hear this, but then I'm just remembering like how other women who have gone into politics have had a slightly different experience. I mean, and
Uh-huh.
not just in Kenya, but also in Uganda, where you're told you have to wear 2 pairs of jeans because someone will try to pull your dress out, and only to find that you're actually prepared. You have 2 pairs of jeans on the inside. Um, did you feel unsafe at any point physically, mentally? Were you attacked online? Were you ever a target of a population that wasn't supporting of you, even though you're saying you went in as an independent candidate?
Well, so there's one incident that did happen. First of all, my how I did my campaign is I'd have a core team, and then everywhere that I go to, I'd reach out to the people there before, and then make contact so that by the time I get there, I also have a team there. Um,
Mm,
Unfortunately, just the way that political space is set up is fine.
mhm,
So even the guys who I would go with, I'd have probably one lady, two ladies, but the rest of them one guy. Um,
mhm.
for security, obviously.
Right.
And so, yeah, there was a lot of times that I would feel quite unsafe. However, because I was with my team that time, that I knew I'd
Yeah.
be okay. There
Yeah.
was actually one incident where it was in Lunga in Nairobi, uh,
Mm-hmm.
behind industrial area. It's like it's
Yeah.
literally 2 seconds from town. But there's a big slum there called Lunga Lunga. And so how
Mhm.
we would be so most informal settlements would have like two points of entry or exit. So we'd start from one side
Right.
and then go to the other side. Um,
Right.
so we get to the end. The exits were always you just have to like I don't know. There were always people who are trying to like take advantage or steal or
Ah,
whatever. There's always that kind of thing.
there
But
was something.
this specific time we literally had to run out. I mean, it was a bit chaotic. Like everybody was trying to hang on the car. Like it was the guys in my team
Yeah.
actually picked me up and threw me in the van.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the one incident where I felt, oh my god, this is very unsafe.
Yeah.
Um, so that's physically. There was
Right.
always that threat, and always had to look for a way to just leave without because people would always around and oh, you can't be coming here to campaign and you don't give us money. You have to give us money.
Right.
Online, I, I surprisingly I didn't get that much. I think people, I don't
Yeah.
know, people were nice to me.
Yeah.
There was just a few
Yeah.
times times where that's directly on my page. But I would find if someone else posts me, then I'd find hate comments on that page or whatever. There's actually one time I went for one show by Larry Commando. I think at the time I was doing Simba.
Yeah.
And so Larry posted me on his social media. And I think that thread like was insane. It's just the kind of hate people were spewing. And I was just like,
Oh, why?
where is this even
Why?
coming? So that was the one time I felt, hey, what's up, guys? What did I do? I didn't attack any of you. Like, why are you attacking me?
Right.
But other than that, like people have been quite nice. I so far up to now, like I still feel like I'm quite gentle on social media, which
Yes.
I know is not normal, and
You
because I
you
see the
you
kind of
represent
bullying that other women go through, and
go through.
it's insane. Yeah.
I mean, so Susan, me, I'm glad to hear this because then hopefully this story can actually encourage other young women that get the calling, the vocation to actually
Yeah.
serve, to throw themselves in the ballot box and then become part of the community that then air out women opinions, youth opinions, and also be part of governance. Because I know the work that the politicians or the political leaders do is not exclusively to the groups they represent. You actually represent the whole Kenyan community. So me, I'm excited, and this is an opportunity for other young people to go out there. I like the fact that you're saying you went in as an independent candidate, and maybe just to ask you, do you think you'll do the same thing again? Would you go in as an independent candidate now that you have graduated with a public policy master's degree? How has your perspective changed? Because I'm sure at the time, what was your initial training, by the way, your undergraduate studies?
Okay, I have a bachelor's degree in music.
In
I know.
music. Oh my God.
Yeah.
See, friend. So then how has your perspective then towards politics or governance now changed? And what are you going to do different the next time?
Yeah. Wow. So that's actually like a lot because I feel like that's like my my entire 4 years since 2017.
Uh-huh. Right.
Um, but my perspective has really changed in terms of um buying independent is great, but it's
Mm-hmm.
very difficult, and there's a lot of things that being a party cushions you from. Um,
Mm-hmm.
even just your own registration and things like those. That's a long process, and the party does that for you. In addition to that, parties, in as much as we have parties that don't necessarily an election cycle or have any particular ideology behind, um, parties still give you a popularity. They still so much mileage in terms of
Yeah.
support,
Yeah. Yeah.
financially, and even just support in terms of being able to get into different spaces that probably people who are independent are not able to get into. And so it's it's just best to buy in a political party. Now the choice of parties obviously would be the the difficult thing to do. In terms of
Exactly.
how my perspective has changed,
Right.
I think being in studying policy just helped me see the difference there
Mm-hmm.
to anything to do with government, to public policy. Um, dynamics are so many, the interests are even more, and that whole um,
Mm.
space is
Right.
quite complex.
Mm-hmm.
And it means it means a lot of things. It means
Yeah.
coming up with different solutions, coming up with solutions that probably play into interests of people who are responsible for this kind of change. I mean, it's a lot of things to consider, and therefore um, look at it from a different. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is, I've also learned to appreciate other people's perspectives in terms
Right.
of. Um, I think I was very extremely radical. I'd be like, "This is how it should be done." No, like like I
Yes,
get
yes.
mad. But I think in a class, different parts world support communism, who would support dictatorship, who would support different worldviews
Right,
and support it and prove that it's working in other places and all. Just
right.
helped me be okay with people having
Mm-hmm.
different opinions and
Mm-hmm.
look for the bright in each of those opinions and see how it can be borrowed or how it can be um, converted into something that is useful, beneficial.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
so because of that, it's really allowed me to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's allowed me to look into, be open towards new perspectives, learning about different things, and
Mm-hmm.
then seeing how those things adjust to or fit to
Right,
my that can work in my space. And I think that is um, it's a good lesson for me personally. Um,
right,
it just allow me to be able to pick and choose, be able to measure out different solutions and see what works
right.
and what doesn't, so
Yeah.
that it can fit the context that I'm trying to change. So yeah, so that's in a nutshell, I think, what the last 4 years has taught me. Yeah,
That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, to be honest, public policy is a very interesting field, to say the least.
yeah,
I hear when you're saying that you're looking at the interest of the different people. This is a whole population. You're looking at managing public resources. Um, One of the things that we have received or we have seen as a challenge in our public leadership is actually the values that comes along with governance. And these are matters that we will definitely need more than 30, 40 minutes to discuss when it comes to campaign financing and how people are compromised to a point that they actually suspend their values and decide to politic. This politicking means you align yourselves with people that you don't really have the same values as. You find
yeah,
yourself hopping from one political party to another, not because of the values or what they represent in their manifesto, but because there's money there or you think you have a chance to do something different. So it's a whole lot discussion
yeah.
for us to have to have another chat and say, by the way, when it comes to politics, other than just belonging to a political party that can actually spew you out at the end of the tunnel. They'll say we have potential candidates for senatorial position, but the
Yeah,
party has had a meeting last night and decided that this is the ideal candidate to vie
it's
for the
not you.
party. It is not you. There's also a lot of things, but in terms of leadership, it's actually just a breath of fresh air to see young, ambitious people come into this space, and then to also just observe and learn the personal journey that you're having to not only just be a politician, but also increase your knowledge, your skills, while actually practicing it. I mean, you are my boss, and it's something that I say with a lot of pride because not only were you there, but how you expended your duties as a young leader is something that I think many people need to learn and emulate, where you
Oh, thank
suspend emotions. Yeah, you suspended the emotions and then you looked at the facts on the table. And then you also looked at the principle behind some motives. And I think that's something that we all need to do. Leadership is not an easy thing. It's actually, yeah, I like to use this British principle, or I don't know whether it's a saying. It says, cometh the hour, cometh the man. And
yeah.
that means during the moment of crisis, that's when the leader in you actually steps up. And you step up not to do things that feel comfortable to you, but things that actually allow you to expend your duty as a leader. I'm seeing we're 28 minutes in. I don't know. Do you have any additional things that you can talk specifically about women in leadership and your own experience? Because this one was very much a Suzanne Silantoi, youngest senatorial candidate experience as a young
It
woman in
was a
leadership.
me episode.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Um, well, I think the thing that kind of a little bit alarms me with women in politics in general is just how first of all, I think women are really judged very harshly in the political system, and that
Mm-hmm.
really concerns me.
Mm-hmm.
For anything you do, you're judged 10 times more harshly than any man. If anything comes up, the people are quick to attach it to maybe a sexual thing or whatever. Like that
Right,
completely annoys me. Um,
right.
and I don't know what needs to happen for that to change.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more women to come into this space. Probably um, more men to support women in this space so that it doesn't continue to do this, because I feel like it's getting a bit worse. It's getting worse, especially with social media, people being able to troll you left, right, and center. It just continues to perpetuate that narrative, which I think is quite alarming. Um, the other thing that I I hope to see actually is I hope to see more women like women like Martha, uh, uh,
Right.
who are very firm in their stance, who don't and I know to each their own, and probably whatever works for you maybe won't work for other people. It's fine. But I would like to see more who lead with knowledge, who lead with wisdom, as opposed to maybe leading with the looks or quote unquote sexuality, really. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something I would like to see, that people leading with their looks or whatever. I'd like to see less of that, because
Right.
at the end of the day, those women end up making us go back. They
Right.
remind people why women are not in this place in this space in the first place, and I know to each their own. Probably that's how it works for them.
Mm-hmm.
However, it just in my personal opinion, I would prefer to see
Right.
more women like Amata Karo who lead with wisdom and
Right.
knowledge. Like it's about what you know and what you can do, as
Right.
opposed to
Right.
what you look like or whatever. You get what I mean?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so that's something that I'm really alarmed by. And unfortunately, like it feels like politics is a place where you have a little bit of popularity. You feel, oh yeah, actually, let me get into politics. I feel like this can work. Um, I'm happy. I don't know if the BBI goes through. The manner of nomination will change. I think that would be essential, because a lot of women who end up being nominated into these spaces are probably, I don't know, maybe not qualified enough. And
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be looked,
Mm-hmm.
so that at least when women are in this space, they are contributing meaningfully, as opposed to just being to fill a quota. Um,
Yeah. So basically, I hear you. I hear you. When it comes to gender inclusion and gender diversity, I am for meritocracy any day, anytime. I would love to see women in the spaces where representation matters. And I like for meritocracy to be used because thankfully, based on what the Nyayo administration did back in the day, ensuring that all the girl children go to school, opening up centers for girls to actually go to primary school education, high school, and that encouragement. I remember one of the governors, I think it was Isaac Ruto, that was reminding us that when he sees women participating in political spaces or even in the private sector and they're thriving, he remembers what Nyayo did back in the day. Not to say that in any way I worship any politicians or political leaders, but if in your tenure you are able to plant a good seed, then obviously I
mhm.
acknowledge it. And therefore, we do have a pool of well merited and well qualified women to be in such spaces. And if not, if say we have to check the representation box, then still when we do our selection and our nomination from the political parties first of all, and then
Yeah,
now coming to other spaces, it should have a bit of merit. And merit
definitely.
for saying when people are being inducted in certain spaces, there is a deliberate training that directs them to getting the kind of knowledge and skills that they need. Because we've also
Mm.
seen nominated leaders, in fact, nominated senators even. And I'm not going to mention names because this platform is for building people and not turning them down or pulling them down. But we've seen them being inactive because they either don't know how to do their jobs or maybe they just really truly don't know. And so I remember at some point when we were working with the organization we previously served, we were thinking, instead of bashing this person that does not know things yet they're actually a senator, why not approach them and then try to see if they can join certain training opportunities, and we give them this information, whether we are donor funded or not, so that you also stop embarrassing yourself seeing young women in certain positions and they're not able to deliver. So that's when, again, you say, this calling is bigger than me. It's bigger than my organization. If it's truly to serve, then it has to serve people. So Suzanne, thank you very much for being part of this discussion. It's actually to just tell people, by the way, politics is not dirty. Politics is not exclusively for men, although this Diversity with Diana podcast doesn't mean that I'm only addressing the women or the young women population. I'm addressing everybody, and we're going to be seeing more diverse people. I want to have public finance discussions. I actually just want to have meaningful engagement and tell people, stop being too serious. We need diversity of skill set, diversity of gender, diversity in many ways, but in no way are we compromising merit.
Absolutely.
So maybe I can give you like a minute or so, or 2 minutes to talk about Is That So podcast, and I'm hoping to be invited as a guest.
Well. So Is That So with Silantoi is a podcast and YouTube channel
Right.
where we discuss in a simple it's just basically civic education, but we are trying to look for a way to understand what we do, how we can interact with government, what government does, how systems are set up. And through this, we can create a politically empowered generation, because if we are not informed, then we will not know what to do. And so this is just a place to inform people about what we do, what government does, and what we can do in addition to that, or to contribute meaningfully towards that. So that's what Is That. Hopefully, we can make information more accessible,
Right.
easy to understand, consumable by everybody, so that when it comes to making political choices, we can make good political choices. So that's what Is That So is about.
I love it. I love it. I have watched a few of your episodes and I just love it. It's like you're giving people information about public policy. And I think people should stay tuned and listen to you. Thank you so much, Suzanne. I think we can call it an evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being officially my third guest at the podcast. Asante sana.
Yeah. I'm excited. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Okay.